Today on the podcast, we talk about Dia de los Muertos and American Indian Heritage Month. So stay tuned, you might learn something, and you might have a little fun on the way. Episode 42 is coming right up.
It would seem as though.
Hey. It would seem as though it is episode 42.
Jesus.
I felt we needed a little round of applause. Oh my God, you calm down.
Oh my
It's
God,
Thank you
so
much. Episode 42 of the podcast, It Would Seem As Though, where we talk about anything, everything, and nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Besta.
Oh, and mostly nothing. I'm so sorry. I was distracted
because you're all busy.
I was
on the
literally
phone.
distracted. And I'm Annika. You're welcome.
God.
And I'm here. I'm sorry.
I know, you're so busy.
Literally,
You're
such
so
a busy
busy.
person.
She barely had time to pencil me into her day to come over and do this.
Girl, I'm just a big
her in
big
so
star.
Busy. Well, between school and work and all of the, working for NASA and all the many millions of things you do, you're just so busy.
So busy. She can't help it.
Whereas I am so busy because I watched, 6 Hallmark movies in 2 days, so I'm so busy.
Girl.
But I'm
Really?
off. I was off the Christmas movies for a couple days. I was watching the Good Witch movies.
I need you to leave. I'm so sick of it.
I actually had to sign up for the Hallmark channel because I was like, I can't get enough Christmas movies.
I'm screaming, get out.
But listen, I'm trying to also
Today's canceled.
round it out and watch lots of
No, ma'am.
Christmas stories where the main characters are all black.
Well, I mean, go for
Because
you.
it took forever for Hallmark to not just have all these blonde, blue-eyed Christmas stories. It's like every white person ever got to be in a Christmas movie. Could we have some with a little diversity?
Let me tell you though, I think that what's funny is I was just talking to some of my friends about this, that every Hallmark movie, every Lifetime Hallmark, new Christmas movie, what the fuck ever.
They're all the same.
They're all the same, first of all. And the man is always some tall, dark, and handsome, right? Dark hair. He's always finding himself, or he's successful and just visiting home or whatever. They're always the same. But the man looks the same in all of them.
Right.
He's the same person.
He's hot and single.
But I mean, just a tall, dark-haired man.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. And I'm girl, calm down, okay? It's fetish for white men.
What was also funny to me is in almost all of them, it's the same formula. It's, girl comes to her hometown to, I don't know, save the family.
Some New England town.
To do whatever. It's always something, but she comes back to her little hometown.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to be there because she lives in the city now.
Right.
But she gets to her hometown and finds, oh my God, I do miss my hometown after all. Then she meets Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, who has just been there, being single and, popular and successful. But nobody has caught him yet.
No.
And he's apparently waiting for her to come back from the big city. And then they end up, there has to be some kind of conflict.
Yep.
But they get over the conflict and they end up together and she stays in the small town.
Oh my God, it's beautiful and magical and somehow everything works out.
I watched one last year where this woman, black woman, comes from actual city where the newspaper she works for has now been taken over by the evil Marie Osmond.
Oh my God, not the evil Marie Osmond.
And this black woman goes to this little itty bitty town in Alaska where, amazingly enough, they're super cool and not racist at all.
Yeah.
And I'm what teeny town in Alaska is that?
Yeah.
Or the one that I watched the other day where the main characters were lesbians.
Lesbians.
And they were in some teeny tiny town in Canada or someplace, some fucking place, out of Maine. It's all the same. And where everybody's like, oh, we love lesbians. You two should get together. In fact, as you're the only 2 lesbians we know, we're going to try and match y'all up.
Ugh.
But we're happy about it because, girls loving other girls. This soup's natural. And I'm like, again, what small town?
I don't know.
What fucking small town is this?
That is always the best part to me about movies like that. Also, oh my God, the Andy Griffith Show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Mayberry, RFD, they're just so wholesome and sweet. And I'm like, but are they? And were they? No. Everyone's a white person, except obviously in this lesbian town that you're talking about.
It's funny, though, that you bring that up. In one episode I watched many years ago, but not like as many years ago it was on. I was like probably 5 years ago. I was watching Andy Griffith. I was like, is this even as good as, you know, because I remember watching as a little kid, little Ronnie Howard when he was little and cute.
I know.
And the episode was about this traveling band of gypsies.
Oh, no.
And I'm going to say it because that's what they were, you know, who had made camp right outside of Mayberry.
Yep.
And everybody was like, oh boy, this is trouble. The gypsies are
right here in River City.
It was like, so we're going to just be racist and whatever. And it was like, oh boy. But it was so stereotypical, you know, they're driving the big, looks like
a covered wagon, kind of, right?
But it was, But, and they're all dressed in like layers.
They're playing tambourines and
right.
silk scarves everywhere.
Oh my god, speaking of racist. So, on the night before Halloween, as you know, went to the Lone Fir Cemetery tour.
Oh, and I couldn't because I was at a stupid work meeting.
Right. It wasn't what I thought, because I know that there's one tour they do where you actually meet, you know, actors portraying the people who've died. Sure. This was just this old woman who's walking around telling us stories of all these people, which is also fine, except she didn't always wait until all the group had got to her to start telling the story, and she spoke barely above a whisper. And I was like, we're outside with traffic, and
this is Johnny Doe. He died.
Right. But when she got to this one guy, this one Italian man who lived in Little Italy downtown, which I didn't even know there ever was a Little Italy downtown. It's over by where the Keller is now.
Uh-oh.
And
I never guessed.
He was out in the street doing something. He got shot. Nobody saw a thing. Nobody knew a thing.
Same.
And then when they threatened to arrest like everybody, suddenly people knew a thing. And they're like, oh, it was, you know, Joe over here who shot him, because they hate each other and they, you know.
Racism.
And so she's talking about, well, they were both Italian.
Okay.
And they hated each other for whatever reason. They shot, they were going to shoot, they were going to kill each other.
Right, it's a duel.
But one of them got to the other one first. But then she finishes her story with, and then, you know, the city tore down all of Little Italy to build all these apartments, and she's moved on like,
no big deal.
So a little, you know, racism, a little just destroying people's culture.
Entire life.
That's okay, I guess.
Oh, look at all these apartment buildings.
But we have apartments where...
do you know what's funny?
But it was just funny how she was like, and then the city of Portland put up apartments out.
NBD.
Wait, so you're going to go just gloss over the fact that they tore down Little Italy and booted all these people out so they could build apartments?
What? What's the problem?
So much so that I never knew we had a Little Italy.
How long ago was this?
Early 1900s.
Okay, so just right after you were born.
Right. So I was still a baby.
Yeah, so how would you
not
know?
Old enough to know about real estate and culture.
Stupid.
Yeah. How rude.
I made a joke the other day that in Portland, you know how apartments, for a long time it was like apartment buildings and townhouses and shit were going up like crazy everywhere. Now it's like storage facilities.
Yeah,
like
storage units.
Literally fucking everywhere. And I'm like, who has this much shit? And on account of why?
Hoarders.
Right. And I feel like here's where I think storage units are fine. If you're moving. Or, like, someone died and you're taking... Like, whatever. You know what I mean? Those situations. But I think if you just consistently have one forever and ever and ever, I don't get it. Like, I don't... Why do you have that much stuff that you never see, you never touch, you don't know what's in there anymore? Like...
Yeah, why have it?
Why have it? What's the point?
I mean, if you're saving something for a specific reason, or like you said, because you're moving, or because you just have to sort shit out because someone died, that'll make sense. But yes... And I know people who have more than one storage unit.
That's crazy.
And it's like, well, all of my old... Just get rid of it. Take it to a dump. Donate it. Burn it to the ground. But you don't... You're paying hundreds of dollars a month to keep shit you don't even look at?
I know. Why? And I don't get it.
I mean, I have a garage full of shit that I'm like, somebody just come take it all. I don't care. But, you know, someone has to do the work.
Right.
Because I don't want to do it.
No.
But literally, it's like, if somebody came in and cleared it out, I'd be like, nah, okay. Right. And as I often say, all I would do is like in 6 months probably go, hey, have you seen my fill in the blank? And, you know, be like, well, that was in the garage. Oh, okay.
Well, and also here's the thing.
Because I also no longer get the attachment to those kind of things that I used to get.
Well, but here's the thing, too, is your garage is for a family of 4.
Yeah.
And I have stuff in there, too, because I don't have a ton of storage, you know? So, like, and it is not nearly as full as it used to be, girl.
Oh, no.
So, like, I'm saying, I think we're doing fine.
Yeah. Well, we're not paying outside storage, so
Hell no. Oh, God, no.
Yeah. So, I've had such a busy week since our last meeting here of the pod.
Yeah, tell me.
Well, because so we do this on Wednesday. Thursday, I was invited by my good friend Bolivia Carmichaels to do a show at what I referred to as the old folks home, but it was a senior living facility. But back in the day, old folks home. Old folks home. Except when I texted her, because here's me, I'm imagining, we're going to be between the serving of the pudding and whatever, we're going to be like, dancing between the tables of old people in the cafeteria or something.
How cute.
Then I'm just like, okay. Well, so I texted her and I said, so where are we performing? And she said, in the Performing Arts Theater. And I was like, the what?
Where are we going?
The old folks home has a Performing Arts Theater. They sure as shit did. And it was very fun. And there was like 3/4 of a house.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a good crowd, and they were very into it, laughing, cheering,
love it,
clapping. A few people tipped. I came home with $6 in tips.
Yes, you did.
But that meant I had to go out into the audience, and I don't usually do that because going off the stage with my bad knees, I'm always like, I'm gonna do a face plant, and then I'll have to live there.
You just sit on your bottom and you just slide down,
and then I'll never stand up. Because who's gonna help me up off my ass?
No, I love
Not
that.
good. It would be tragic. So I did that on Thursday, and that was super fun.
Okay.
And then Saturday night, went to a Halloween party.
Oh my god.
I know. I was like, 2 things in a week?
Ugh.
Oh, too much. But went to this Halloween party where there was like food and dancing. And what is crazy to me is there was on 2 floors of this church. Upstairs was the dancing and downstairs was the socializing and the eating. So the floor space upstairs, huge. Huge, huge. Downstairs, the socializing part is huge, but then the part where there was food was pretty small with a big and everyone's in that room. It's like, get your food and move because there's no room for anyone else to get around the table and get their food. But whatever, that's not the point of the story. So my son wants to dance, and he's like, will you dance with me? And I was like, not right this moment. And he had the saddest look on his face, and he's like, well, I meant I just have to sit down my purse and stuff. I can't dance with all my crap in my hands. That boy had me dancing for like so. But you know what else?
Tell me.
Watching white people dance makes me sad.
Oh.
I'm all, what is wrong with you people? Because when you're playing the song, the rhythm is going to get you, and it doesn't.
When, bitch? When are you going to get me?
When the rhythm going to get you? Because, girl, as they're all doing interpretive dance and things, and I'm like, they look like those inflatable men in front of the...
I can't.
In front of the pot shop who are doing the wiggly dance, and I'm like, what is this? What is this? No, it's bad. And then on Sunday, we did the cemetery thing.
Right.
God, which was a lot of walking, and by the time I got to the car, I was like, I'm dead.
So you literally danced, and you literally walked.
And I died.
And now you're dead.
And thankfully, I was in a cemetery, so when I died, they just buried me.
They just pushed you right in one of the holes.
Yeah. Oh my God. So the funniest story to me in the cemetery, because they're, like I said, I was walking around telling stories of the deceased. We got to this one grave marker that said, random person.
I got a picture of that.
Yes. Because apparently Bob and Betty Smith bought themselves these plots. And when one of them died, they were like, okay, well, we have our plot. Go bury Betty in the plot. Well, they dig up the plot, and there's already a body in the plot. And it was like,
not the body plot.
The body plot. And so Bob and Betty, being the nice people they were just like, well, we're just going to donate this spot and just be buried elsewhere in the cemetery. And they actually had a little marker stone that just says random person.
How cute!
And I was like, you couldn't come up with like a clever name.
They didn't just dig rando person up and throw them in the bin.
Like
you know what I'm saying?
Shanita Casket.
Shanita. This is Shanita Casket.
The Shanita Casket.
I hate it.
Well,
girl.
I just thought that was funny. And then, of course, Monday was Halloween. And by Monday, I was like dragging so bad, I'm like crawling on my hands and knees to get I can't, not really, because I never get up.
You're just rolling.
I'm just like, all I could do today is watch Hallmark movies and stay at home. And then, of course, kids want to trick or treat.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? You take the kids trick-or-treating, and I'll stay here for all those trick-or-treaters that we'll get. All 3 of them. But we did get 3 trick-or-treaters.
Good for you.
And I think the only reason we got them is because I was having groceries delivered. And they saw me on the porch bringing stuff in, and some man yells at me, he goes, "Are you doing trick-or-treating, or are you just..." I was like, "Yeah, come on, I have candy."
Or you can have some groceries.
So these 3 adorable little children came to my door, and I was like, "Do you want Whoppers, or do you want Good and Plenty?"
Nobody wants a Good and Plenty.
The 2 little girls were like, "Good and Plenty," and then when I hand them full-size, like theater-size boxes of Good and Plenty, they were like, "Oh,
I can't believe you.
what?" And then the little boy says to me, "What is Good and Plenty?" And I was like, I don't know. I've never eaten them, but I think they're licorice kind of candy. And he goes, "I'll have the Whoppers."
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm a fat-free candy. Licorice candy, artificially flavored. Good and Plenty. They are foul. I want you to know that this...
Well, I had never had any until this morning.
But it's licorice, girl.
I know, and I like licorice.
But
I
do.
like
You think
licorice.
children like licorice?
Well, they were at the store. They're fancy. I don't know. Listen, my kids both like them. They opened them this morning and said, "You want to try? You want one?" And I was like, "I'll try some." Even I don't like them, and I like licorice.
I'm gonna try
because
one.
they're super sweet, cup-flavored licorice. And licorice, the whole reason I like is because it's not sweet and it doesn't hurt my teeth.
This is so
I
gross.
love that you're eating it and you look so sad.
It is just... I don't understand.
You're like, why would anybody eat this?
I don't know why people like this flavor. It's like... So listen, I like chai tea a lot. Like concentrated chai tea. Oftentimes, usually it's made with cardamom. Cardamom to me is very fennel, is very licorice.
Okay.
And I do not like it. I got a chai tea. It was like really nice, really bougie when I lived in Los Angeles. Then I was all, I don't like it. I hate it.
This expensive drink is crap.
Yeah.
I just wish anybody else could see the look on your face right now. Because
I'm
you look
enjoying
like
myself.
the look is like you're eating the most
You know what
disgusting
I'm doing?
thing.
I'm currently putting the disco in disconnecting. Do you know what I mean?
You go, "Ah."
I hate it here.
Well, now you know you never have to eat another one.
God.
Well, you didn't have to eat that one because you knew what it
But
was.
I'm
when you
trying
put it
to
in your
like I'm trying to like, oh God, try things.
mouth. You're trying to try things.
I'm trying to try
You're
things.
trying my patience is what you're trying right now.
I'm a bitch. Listen, I have a Good and Plenty in my mouth, and it's not good, and it's plenty. You know what I mean?
Like that one was plenty.
What horrible. Anyway,
So that was my. What did you do on Halloween?
girl. I worked, and
Well,
then
I
I
know
did
you worked.
homework, and then I did nothing. I watched movies. I was very boring. I was broke, girl.
Yeah, I get that.
One tiny sad broke girl.
And
And it also is pissing down
tiny.
rain.
You're 6'1".
I know. Well, people like to call me little and tiny all the time because I'm
Because you're thin.
And I'm always like, who calls me tiny? Bitch, I'm like
No
giant.
way.
Also, correction. We all just measured our height at my house.
Okay.
I'm 6'1.5".
Did you shrink?
No, because I remember our doctor before a few years ago said, "Oh, so you're 6 foot?" And I said, "Excuse me?
How? This is
dare
hate
you?"
speech.
No, I'm not. And then she was like 6'1.5", and I am.
Okay.
So probably
All right.
actually 6'1.5". So whatever, 6'1", girl. What's a half inch gonna do? You can't see on top of my head anyway, bitch. Not
How
you, but
many
anyway.
men have said, "What's a half inch gonna do?"
Girl, but there's a difference.
And that's how come none of them can just guess what. What's funny to me is, being a hairdresser, when people come in to get their haircut, they go, "I want like a small inch." An inch is an inch is an inch.
Yeah, it's on a small inch.
There's
bitch.
no like
A half
this.
an
I'm going to
inch?
take
3/4
There's
of an
1 inch here, but it's going to be the smaller of the. No, there's just an inch is an inch.
Right.
Or people look at me and they go, "I want 4 inches." How much is that? It's 4 inches.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will pull out my comb, which has the measurements on one side of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 7-inch comb, and I'm like, "This is 4 inches," which I, by the way, can do without looking at my comb, but I have to give them a visual.
Right.
This is 4 inches. Oh,
That's a lot.
and then I can see him thinking, but he said that was more than 4 inches.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
girl.
I'm just saying. But it's just so funny that people are like, I don't know how much. How do you not know?
That
'Cause,
an
you know,
inch doesn't change.
Didn't you go to school?
Girl,
Didn't you
but
learn some
to
stuff?
be fair, public school is literal trash half
Well,
the
that's
time.
true.
So
That is true.
I don't want to hear it.
Speaking of public school being trash, it kind of brings us to one of our topics today, which is that it's Native American Heritage Month.
Yes.
And what did we learn about that in school? Fuck nothing. We learned
Trail
that
tears.
we learned so much crap that was mostly lies.
Well, a lot of it is sugarcoating. Because a lot of it is like, oh, well, the settlers just bought the land from the natives. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, so the settlers, yes, did take land, but it wasn't...
Yeah, they stole it.
Oh, yeah, and if they did buy anything, it was like they gave them... That was worth nothing.
Blanket of smallpox.
Oh, girl. Don't even get me fucking started.
Here's your blanket of smallpox, and I will take all of your horses.
When we decided we were going to talk about this, I was like, well, I just want to talk about, like, facts then. Because it's Native American, heritage. But yeah, you don't really learn anything in school. And, like, I've learned a lot more, one, because I've done my own research, but two, with, the degrees that I study, it's part of American history. It's very important. But there's a lot of things people don't realize. You know, we all know about... Europeans coming here and pushing natives off their land, and how the whole goal was to, like save the man or save the child, but kill the Indian, right? So assimilation, everyone thinks, like, oh, we should all just assimilate into, a culture, into a society. But assimilation is just another form of genocide half the time. When all of the indigenous people are assimilating to your culture, they're losing
I think
things.
had it gone the other way, had the white people showed up here and said... I see this is how you're doing things. Mm-hmm. We're going to try to fit in instead of stealing your shit.
Right.
Teach us your ways. I think that would have been fine.
Different. It would have been different. Yeah, it would have been.
As opposed to, you seem uneducated, we're going to steal all your shit. Because you don't speak the language we speak. Obviously, you're savages.
Right. Well, and that brings me to a different point. Is Native Americans, and this is all through North America, okay? There were... 300 known languages spoken in North America. And then there's some researchers who say that it could have been up to 500. But, like, Ulysses S. Grant declared that, they speak the savage tongue and their barbarous dialect should be blotted out and the English language should be substituted. So, beginning with European movement into the New World, they just started to slaughter people. And there's... not only was there, like, actual just murder because people were just being slaughtered, but also disease because Northern Europeans specifically, were foul. And they had the plague. Do you know what I mean? Like,
they brought it to the New World.
Right. And they lived in, like, horrendous conditions. They used to throw their fucking, like, bedpans out the window, girl. Like, these... Northern Europeans were very unhealthy people. And they went through a lot of shit. Like, their climate was changing. They went through different ice ages, whatever. But, like... comparatively to the rest of the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, they were the most fucked up, And then they were the ones who were like, you know what? Let's go capture some Africans. And what people don't realize is that Southern Europeans, so like Spain, Portugal, Italy, all of those places, already had contact with Africa, right? They were already doing trade, already doing business because they were closer. So essentially, white people just rolled up and were like, you know what? We're dying and we can't bathe and we don't know how to grow food and we have the plague and we're gross.
And we want you to take care of us.
But what we're going to do is we're just going to steal your land and you can teach us how to bathe and how to grow food and how to survive this harsh land, right?
In return, we will kill you.
And then we're going to kill you. But not only that, we're going to go steal indigenous people from Africa and we're going to bring them here to build our society. So honestly, you have these like... gross, slobby ass, pale skin fucking people who come up from underground and are like, we're king, and I'm like, what the fuck have you actually done? You've just stolen and taken and called your own.
Well, and that's it. Their idea of them being a superior race of people, which, you're all the same race, dumbass, but being a superior group of people is because they built buildings,
right?
But their biggest claim to fame is stealing. Mm-hmm. Stealing other people's land, stealing other people's culture, stealing, whatever. The culture that I think, or the group that I think has the best idea is the Sentinelese people. Mm-hmm. Do you know about them?
On the island. Yeah.
On the island, yes, Sentinel Island, which is in the Indian Ocean. And if you don't know about it,
look it up.
I remember a few years ago when that missionary was like, well, I'm going to go out and help them. They don't want you. And it's against the law for you to even go there.
Yep.
And so, but he was like, but God sent me. Well,
fuck your God.
And they killed him. Mm-hmm. And it was like...
And people were shook.
People were shook, but here's the thing. The people who were like, dude, you know you're not supposed to go there. You know that their rules, their whatever, is their own rules. They are not ruled by any other government.
Nope.
And if white people went there, it would probably be the destruction of them because they don't have, they're not, they don't have immune systems like we do.
No.
Because they've not been exposed to any of that shit. And so you can't go there for any reason.
And then you're going to go there and proselytize. You're going to go there and spread the word of God to people who don't know your language, who we don't know what language they speak because not many people have been to the island and not many people have studied them. They still don't know like their hierarchy. They don't know how they function as a group of people because no one's allowed to.
All they know is that they take care of their own. They live on this island that's about the size of Manhattan.
Okay.
And that they have homes, they have group homes for like multiple generation families to live in. And then they have smaller huts that are kind of open air. So whatever, but if you come anywhere near their island, they will kill you.
Yeah, they shoot bow and arrows, girl. They ready to get you. And you get close, you die.
It just makes me think, because I was thinking about that after I read that, and I had forgotten about that guy. His name was
Douche.
Douche the jerkface. John Chow. And then the church came out and they were like defending him, saying, well, he wasn't going to, he had 26 different shots to be, he quarantined.
Nobody gives a shit.
Nobody cares. You have no business going.
No, it's none of your bit. And like,
I don't know what it is about white people, especially Christian white people, who are like, well, we need to save these other people. Well, save them from what? Save them from you.
Yes, you're
the problem. Topic. And I was thinking about that after I read it, and I thought, had only it been that way here when the white people came over, if the indigenous people had been like, no.
Well,
we're going to just shoot all of you before you get out of your boat.
Right, girl. Just right away. Bing, bang, bongo.
Really,
honest.
Had they done that,
well, and
the white people would have been all, these people are mean. We're going home.
There were obviously the resistance, and I'll talk about that in a second. But talking about white people being saviors, right? There is this whole thing where Americans, people in the West, I don't like to say, like, here's the thing. Here's a PSA. Don't say third world. It's offensive, right? If you're going to say anything, say the global South. Okay? We're the global North. The global South is everyone else. If you want to get more technical, you can call everyone outside of the Western world the global majority, because it's literally everybody else except North America and Europe. Anyway, there is a common, I don't even know, act that happens with like different kind of like feminism or different kind of like liberation movements that are based in the United States, where when we look at other countries and how their hierarchies or how they do things or how they run business or their culture, we look at it through like from our perspective. So we think, oh, here's an example. Women in the Middle East, Muslim women who wear niqabs or wear burqas or, wrap their head or, whatever. We look at that. American people look at that as like women being subjugated, women being oppressed, women being X, Y, and Z. Those women, oftentimes, unless they live in like an oppressive regime, do not look at it like that, right? That's a part of their belief system. It's part of their culture. It's part of their religion. And so that's the issue, is we can't just look at every other culture and want to homogenize everyone, right? We can't go there and want to make everybody the same fucking thing. We can't look at the Middle Est or indigenous tribes.
We can't, and yet that's what we do time after time.
What we've always done, right? And it doesn't make sense. And so more and more there is the push to start thinking about things in a more global trend with people and diversity and education and rights, and opposed to it being like us looking at it from the United States, looking at how to deal, how to help these people in other countries without doing it in a way that is from our perspective.
Right.
That's why no matter what, you should show up and be like, how can I help you? No matter what.
Right.
If you're going to go help somebody, ask them how you can help them, not this is what you should do.
Right. I want to give you my culture and my God and my whatever because you are backward and broken. That's the part, even as a child, that I was like, wait a minute. You go to these countries and tell people who've been surviving just fine without you that if they don't, switch over to your God, that they're going to be damned for eternity.
Girl.
And it's like, they have their own.
Yeah.
They're fine. And the arrogance, and I mean this like across the board, the arrogance of anybody telling someone else what you're doing isn't good. What your culture's been doing for thousands of years, no good.
Yep.
Because I'm white and I know better.
Yep.
And that is all that it boils down to, is I'm white, I know better.
And
because how do you know better?
That
Why is your God any more...
But there's like the divine right of men, right? It's like, it's that whole ideology where they think biologically and through God that they are superior, and somehow white people became the superior race, which is ridiculous to me. And even if we look at all people with pale skin, like quote unquote white people of the world, they're all going to be vastly fucking different. Because if you look at people outside of the U.S., those white people who live in like Europe, Eastern Europe, Southern Europe, who are still white people, have a different culture, vastly different culture than we do, you know? So it's not as like narrow of a look, but Western culture, being white, is something different.
I know that when the kids were trick-or-treating the other day, they came home and said to me, one of the houses we stopped at said they didn't do, I was surprised they answered the door, said they didn't do trick-or-treating because it's against their religion, against their culture. And I was like, okay. Well, because I know for a fact that in a lot of Eastern European cultures, it is closely identified with Satan, and so they don't have anything to do with Halloween or trick or treating or any of that. And I was like, well, yeah, that's just their culture. You know, and so that my kids don't hear, oh yeah, those people. It's like, no, that's just their culture.
Yeah,
that's how they believe.
Yep.
That's their choice.
Yep,
awesome,
love it.
You know, I learned something else that I thought was interesting, which I'm sure you know. I did not know that the ancestors of American Indians were nomadic hunters from Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Or Northeast Asia, excuse me, who migrated over the Bering Strait land bridge.
Like thousands and thousands of years ago.
11,000 to 30,000 years ago.
Right.
You know, I'm sorry to the people who believe the world's only 6,000 years old. But because, of course, obviously there's been land shifts since then. There no longer is, you know, a direct line from Asia to America. But I mean, it makes sense, but I did not know that. I found that very interesting.
So, yes. This is what I'll say about it. Sure, migration happened, but people will also use that sometimes to, take away the importance of the rights of indigenous people here, saying like, well, you're really from Asia.
Oh.
Saying like, you weren't the first people here. And here's what I'm going to say.
But they were the first people.
Right. So being indigenous just means you're the first inhabitants of a land. It doesn't mean that endemic means you're like flowers and spices. They're endemic. Like in Hawaii, you can only get, you know what I mean? Hawaii grows like specific spices and fruits that you can only get in Hawaii. So people always think that like being indigenous means like, oh, your people are from that land. Well, your people are the first inhabitants. And so like we could also say shit like, well, we're all from Africa, right? Because if the cradle of humanity is from Africa and everyone is from Africa, then like technically we've all migrated out of Africa, right? So yes, but like 11 to 30,000 years is such a huge gap, you know? And so even though I find that very fascinating and like, where did indigenous people come from first or before in here? Where are their ancestors or whatever? It is like a touchy subject. Just because people will use it to
I had no idea.
Yeah, so...
I mean, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm, of course, people use anything to discredit indigenous people.
Right.
But interesting, remember earlier I said there was like 300 known languages. Well, there are also 574 federally recognized tribes in the U.S.
Yes.
But then there's another 450 plus that are not federally recognized, which is really tragic in general. But there's a lot of different tribes. And so when people talk about Native Americans and they talk about it as like a homogenized group, it is different if you're talking about Native rights and Native sovereignty and, you know, giving people back their autonomy and their culture. But Native Americans differ from coast to coast, from Alaska to Mexico, you know? But the thing that's interesting is, well, there's a few. One, the oldest confederacy... One of the oldest living democracies is the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which has been around since, it has been written about since 1142. So there is this, the oldest living democracy since 1142 at least, but a lot of indigenous tribes will say that it has existed for time immemorial, which is, that's a long ass time.
Yeah.
That's an old ass, like, democracy, you know? And unlike most democracies we see now, women and people who, in American terms and modern terms, who are probably queer, who are LGBT, held important roles in tribes, where, you know, in many tribes are matrilineal, so the women ran things. Everything was passed down through women. And so it's very interesting that not only is it like one of the oldest living democracies, but also it was very inclusive of all peoples. But to piggyback off that, even though Native Americans have been here for 8 million years, and it's been longer than any white person literally ever, the Native American Citizenship Act, or the Indian Citizenship Act, wasn't passed until 1924. So there had already been a world war. Women just got the right to vote. Slavery obviously was over. And in 1924, Native Americans were then considered Americans.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
That's ridiculous to me.
That was 98 years ago, so less than 100 years. And so then if we think about that, that's when boarding schools started, and so churches set up boarding schools on or right near reservations where they would come and get children, and take them and cut their hair and were deprived of their culture.
Take them
forcibly, and children died, children were sexually abused, but they would teach them English, teach them, like, the domesticated ways of the white people, and, like, awful. And so recently, within the past couple of years, there have been mass burial grounds that have been found upon these school grounds because these children died and never went home. And I want you to know that if these children did go home, oftentimes the tribe didn't know what to do. This little body was removed and taken to go learn about the Christian God and how to be a white person, and then sent back to the tribe when they got older, and they didn't know how to relate. They don't feel like kin.
Right,
They don't feel like, you know, and then the 50s or the 40s through 60s, indigenous people were just being forcibly sterilized, which is just another form of genocide, you know, sterilization. And so it has been like, I'm sorry, but there was also the I don't remember what it was called, but it was like the Native American cultural, they couldn't practice their own culture for the longest time. It was considered illegal until like the 70s. So we think about 100 years ago, Native Americans were considered to be American citizens, but then all the shit that's happened since then, and all the shit that happened prior to that, it reminds me of how people talk about slavery or black people and be like, well, slavery was so long ago, shouldn't they just get over it? And I'm like, 150 years isn't that long.
It's not.
When slavery in the U.S. meant like you were a slave forever and you could never be a human. You were deprived human rights.
It's called generational trauma.
Yes, bitch. Yeah.
No, it's like, you know, I'm sorry that all of your family was murdered, but you should get over it.
Right. Well,
it was a long time ago. Yeah, get over it.
Well, and the plight of enslaved African Americans, black people, and indigenous people is very similar, you know, for a lot of reasons. Like, Africans were enslaved because it was, like, said by the king, right? Oh, you can't enslave natives because they were the rightful people of the land first. So they just started to enslave Africans. It doesn't mean that they didn't use natives as slaves. They just weren't supposed to. But, like, you have treated these groups of people so poorly for generations, for years, for hundreds of years. And then you have these people build your land, you take their land, you know, you build your wealth. And like...
What? But also repeatedly, you know, break promises like, well, we're going to give you this big chunk of land, we won't touch you, it's all yours. Yeah. Oh, but we need some of that.
Yeah.
We're going to take some of that back. You can have that little piece over in the corner where nothing will grow.
Yep.
And where there's, you know, it's all garbage. But we'll put you there. That's fine. But we won't move you again.
No. It's so funny because one of my really good friends, Cece, she's indigenous. She's just light-skinned. And she says, God, Annika, sometimes these people look at us like we're the ones who signed the treaty. I said, bitch, I know. But it's very funny to me. It's still sad, though. I mean, they stole so much and moved you and said, well, these are your lands now. Like the Trail of Tears everyone knows about. Yeah. They just forcibly removed Southeast Native people from their lands on the East Coast and moved them to Oklahoma and said, well, here are your homelands. Like, Bitch, these aren't my homelands. What? This is
Right.
Glendale.
This is the shithole where you put me.
Right, exactly. But, like, natives, marginalized people have always played the game of the American, of the white people, because, like, what else are you supposed to do, right? You play the game or you die.
Right.
Right? And that sounds like a Game of Thrones quote. You play the game or you die. Anyway.
Or Saw.
Saw, right? But, like, even think about it. In World War II, Navajo, or Dene people, were code talkers. So they were able to transmit information in the Navajo language, and the information that they were able to transmit was, like, top secret, and they did it to Allied forces. So Native Americans held it the fuck down for World War II, right? They were able
and it's funny you bring that up, because I have a list of books that are recommended for... Okay. And there's a book called Code Talker, written by Joseph Bruchac, and it's exactly about that, about the Navajo people and the working in World War II, because their language is virtually unknown to people outside. They were able to, translate messages and get things all. Yeah, I found that to be fascinating.
Yeah, right? It's very interesting. Well, I mean, we owe a lot to Native innovation. Because, like, corn, rubber, kayaks, modern day farming, mouthwash, all of these things have
mouthwash.
Yeah, right? I know. Well, there's just, like, a ton of shit that a lot of people have that Native Americans taught, or we should give credit to, because all these things come from Native people.
Well, I know they taught white people how to take care, hygiene.
Yep, and how to grow food. And that's crazy. So when people talk about agriculture today, like big business agriculture, that shit's ugly. That's destroying the planet. That is making it, like, unable to use. But what indigenous people did was just create food forests, where, like, spices and fruit and vegetables grew together, right? And they didn't have to work as hard, and they were able to, their harvest was much bigger. And so when white people rolled up and didn't know what the fuck they were doing, a lot of white people, like, would leave the whites and go live with natives, because they were like, no, these people are having much better time and everyone's working together.
Right.
But there are a lot of things that colonizers did, or conquistadores did, when meeting tribes, right? And a lot of it was they would just be fucking scared and, like, destroy shit because they didn't understand it. And so, like, think about growing of crops. White people would just slaughter native people because they were growing crops better. They were just mad that they were doing it better. Happened when the Spanish went to Mexico.
What's crazy to me is that really hasn't changed much.
No, girl.
White people destroying shit because they don't like it, they don't understand it, or you're doing it better than me.
Yeah, and they don't like that. But, like, when the Spanish got to Mexico, I don't know the name of the city, but there are famous cities, obviously, in Mesoamerica, and there was one that was, like, golden and beautiful and intricate, and it lined up with the sun and the stars and blah, 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 and the Spanish were so shook by it that they were like, it's one of the most beautiful things we've ever seen, and then they destroyed it.
How you do.
Right.
It's so beautiful I have to destroy it.
Which I don't understand.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. So, we just owe literally everything to indigenous people. And I'm going to say something. If you believe you have indigenous ancestry or heritage, look it up. Don't be ignorant. Do not walk around and say that your grandmother was a Cherokee princess. Because I'm going to tell you that claiming to be Cherokee or claiming to be an indigenous tribe or having ancestry in that tribe, when you don't, makes people who do look stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you an example. I know this person. I've known this person my whole life, and she's an embarrassment to me. She, like every other white bitch I know, claims to be Cherokee, right? And there's, like, she has no anything to back it up. But I'm like, cool, girl, do your thing. So one year she bought her sister's ornaments for Christmas, and they had teepees.
Oh, boy.
They had teepees painted on them. And they were handmade, they're beautiful, whatever. But I was like, she was like, look at these, aren't these cute? I got them for my sisters because we're Native. And I said, what tribe did you say you're from? And she said, we're Cherokee. And I said, uh-huh. So Cherokee people didn't sleep in teepees. Cherokee people never used a fucking teepee. Because Cherokee people are from, like, Southeast Woodland, Tennessee, Kentucky, the East Coast. And the Native people who slept in teepees and use them for housing were Plains Indians, which would have been the plains, not the Southeast Woodland.
Right.
And so they were nomadic. Cherokee people, Southeast Woodland people lived in like longhouses, which were like communal longhouses. And so it's things like that that are really irritating to me. If you have ancestry, go find it. Go learn about it. But like, don't make shit up and claim it. It's not cute and it's stupid and it's really irritating.
Well, one of the things that's irritating is when, to me, and because it's one of the, you learn, you do better, or you should do better anyway, is white people going, oh, well, such and such is my spirit animal. These people are my tribe. Mm-mm. Well, you don't have a spirit animal. Stop. This is not your culture. You don't even understand what that means. Mm-mm. So, if you say, gosh, I really feel connected to this animal.
My kindred.
Cool. Mm-hmm. It's a kindred spirit. Yeah. Cool.
Different.
This is my village. Yes. Yeah. But no.
Also, you don't have a totem.
No.
You don't have a totem animal. And again, quit trying to like make natives one thing. Not all natives use totem poles or sleep in teepees or have dream catchers or wear war bonnets. Those war bonnets you see that are made of feathers that are beautiful, like 6 tribes in the entirety of the United States wear them. Yeah. It's not even major, right? So it's just, don't be stupid. And you know what? I think that people should focus more on like trying to decolonize their understanding of things. Know where you're from. Know what tribes lived where you are before you did. Know what the mountains and landmarks are called. You know what I mean? Like, Mount Rushmore was not Mount Rushmore. Those faces didn't just fucking appear there when white people showed up. You know?
They didn't just grow out of the mountain.
Right. And so I think it's important to just be able to identify what this place was called before y'all showed the fuck up. You know?
What's interesting to me about Mount Rushmore is it was built pretty fast, considering how big it is and what it is. And the funds never dried up. They just got it done. Bingo bango. But the giant statue that they've been trying for decades to make of Crazy Horse.
Oh, it's huge.
It's huge, and it's, on the side, it's like a mountain, basically.
And his arm is out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's like, that has taken decades, and it may never be finished because there's no funding for that. It's all privately funded. It's like donations and whatever. And so the guy who originally started making it long ago died, and it went on to his family and then other people working on it. And it's like, had it been white people, it would have been done. But it's a native chief who's very important to his culture, but Crazy not Horse, important to the white people.
Well, that's like, it's funny because there are native people from random tribes that are important to like all native people. Do you know what I mean? Just because like Geronimo, Crazy Horse, I can't think. Dragging Canoe, he was the resistance.
Sitting Bull. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are, and there were people who actually fought back and won small battles against the white peoples.
Talking about the resistance and talking about Cherokee people. Cherokee tribe split. Half of them went to Oklahoma. The other half stayed and assimilated to be white people. And then there was a portion that split and went to Chickamauga, which is in like Georgia, and set up towns and camp and started their own hierarchy. And so they were the Chickamauga Cherokee people, and they were the resistance. They fought with the British to stop the white people, the Americans, from going west because they were against westward expansion. So, and you want to know what?
I had no idea.
The Chickamauga tribe is the tribe that my ancestors come from. Isn't that cute?
I just want to say Chickamauga.
Chickamauga.
Because it's a cool word. And it's funny, I was going to talk about that, how one of the things that bothered me when I did the Ancestry deep dive to find your ancestors who were indigenous, that the names on their thing, that the white people, renamed them their last name Savage. Mm-hmm. It's like, because that wasn't their name.
No, right?
Because when you go back and... so the story, and I know we've talked about it before, is I sometimes get on the Ancestry.com website and get into a total rabbit hole and start going down. It's like, oh, here's another clue. Oh, a clue, a leaf, a thing, a bug. And I was looking at your specific ancestry with your grandfather and his people. And as you know, your grandfather was one of the most racist humans to ever even exist, as far as I can tell. Hated everyone. And when I got far enough back in his ancestry to find these indigenous folks, I was like, oh my God, he would, to quote Molly Ringwald, he would shit twice and die.
Well, and like his mother, because his mother's grandparents both were like full native.
Yeah.
And so, on obviously one side. But it was, yeah. If he would have known that he was indigenous and Iranian bitch, because that's literally who I get that from, too. He would literally, shit twice and die. He's probably rolling over in his grave that I talk about.
Luckily, he's cremated, so he can't roll anywhere, and whatever.
Blowing around in his
blowing
iron.
around in the wind somewhere. But yeah, when I found that, I was like, "What?
Crazy." Yeah,
yeah. Because I know on my maternal grandmother's parentage, it was her mother was indigenous. But it was her mother's mother, so her grandmother, my grandmother's grandmother, are you following, belonged to and I hate to even say it out loud, but the 5 civilized tribes. She was on their registry.
Yeah.
And I was like, first of all, how offensive is that?
Do you know the 5 civilized tribes are the first tribes that Europeans came in contact with, and the ones that would assimilate? So it was like Cherokee, Choctaw, Seminole, Chickasaw.
Which is why the only thing they can come up with is they believe she was Cherokee, because it is one of the 5 tribes. Because when I say that, I just say the 5 tribes, because I hate saying that. Yeah. But, I mean, to be historically accurate, that is what it's called. Yeah. Anyway, but when I found yours, and it was so, because hers was so hard to find.
Yeah.
And it took me years to even locate that one document. But I also found that I think it was her mother, I found a piece of documentation that her husband was in the service. It was like he was in one of the wars, and he was in the, on the paper it said the colored soldiers.
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, yeah, and that could have been, honestly, that could have been fucking anybody.
Indigenous or black.
I know. Yeah.
But when I got to yours, and it's all like, oh, look, here's generation after generation of indigenous folks, and very easy to track. I'm like, well, that was cool, and it did really bring me some joy to know that he would have hated that.
Hell yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty interesting, because when you get to that point where it's like his mother and then her grandparents, and then literally everybody's indigenous.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It goes back to like the early 1600s. Like, they have that, and I'm like, bitch.
And then what happened to you? You're the color of Elmer's glue.
It's because I'm not, if I was just more indigenous. Look, I'm not mad what I got. Give me them cheekbones, that nose, that face structure, girl. I'm okay.
Well, and it is funny to me, you were talking about the other day how people will look at you and go, what are you? Like,
often.
Alien, duh.
Yeah, people ask me, I mean...
And that's such a stupid, what are you?
Yeah. But it happens
human?
Happens at work. It happens when I met Astra's mom. Hi, Laura Lee. She said that to me. She was like, I just didn't know. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I didn't know what your, ethnicity was. And I love that. Whatever. I'll be amorphous, girl. I'll just, blend in wherever I need to go.
I am what I need to be.
Exactly. And one of my good friends, they're 2 people I work with, they were talking about me the other day because one of them said, what is Annika? And then my other friend said, I know, she doesn't have white features, does she? And I said, that's so nice. Say it again.
Say it again. I know.
Say it again.
I'm not one of them. Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny, and I know I told you this the other day, that one day, many years ago, and my mother said to me, I don't understand why I have one daughter who thinks she's Mexican and the other one thinks she's black. And I was like, well, your Mexican daughter is because all the people she hangs out with are Mexican. Yeah. And her boyfriend is Mexican. Her stepchildren are Mexican.
She works in
a Mexican restaurant. She speaks Spanish. Yeah. And if there's even a ray of sunshine outside, she's out in it trying to be brown. You know, and... I
mean, trying, she was.
Oh, no, she was brown.
Yeah.
And so people assumed she was Mexican. And as for me, well, I didn't necessarily think that I was black, but I didn't necessarily think I was white either. But it was just more of an attitude thing. It was like, because white people, yeah.
Girl, yeah.
I remember that, and I think I told you this story, that one time, very early in my career of performing, this Latina drag queen who I just adored, Lana Lazan, came up to me, and she was one of those people who just said exactly what she thought. And there was no filter, and there was no softening the edges. And she walks up to me and goes, why do you do white music? And I was like, what? And she goes, why do you do white music? And I was like, because I'm white.
Yeah.
Goes, but you don't perform like a white girl.
Okay.
And then she's like, you should not do white songs. I was like, okay. And from that point on, I was like, well, I got permission from someone who's not white to
Yeah,
not
so
be
here
white
I
on
go,
stage.
girl.
So, and I wasn't. I mean, I was very brown when I was younger because I would tan, and it took me like minutes to.
Yeah.
I'd go outside for 5 minutes and I'd have a tan line. So,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, you know, I just never. I never related with like the white music and the white sounds. Like as a little kid, I'm like, put on Motown, please. I want to hear the Supremes. I don't. What is this white garbage you're listening
Listen,
to?
all the white people that I always loved were always like the dark, creepy, like punk rock white kid. I always liked the alt kids. You know what I mean? I always liked the kids who were, if you're white, at least you're alternative. You know?
At least you're interesting.
Yeah,
you
like-
put some spice up in that white.
Honestly, that's how I always preferred that. Because just like
Yeah.
cookie cutter, white, frat boy, fucking suburbanite people make me want to projectile fucking vomit.
What I know you know
Sorry.
this, but one time when we were at India Oven having dinner, and my sister Linda was there, and she ordered her food, and then the people there, the staff always asks, you know, at what spice level you want, and she's like, well, I want it hot, and then she asked me, she goes, is this hot or is it white people hot? And he looks at her and goes, it's white people.
I love that.
I was like, I have never heard that before, but that will be. And now my children use that because they'll say, is this spicy? And I go, it's a little spicy. Is it white people hot? Or is it, I go,
Girl,
you know, it's.
let me
Yeah.
tell you, your daughter, she
You
looks
think
at
salt water is
yeah,
spicy.
bitch. She looks at yogurt and she's all, it's too hot for me.
That ice water is really muy caliente.
I know this bitch. It's so funny to me.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
yeah.
but then she'll want to go get sushi with me, and then she wants to eat like wasabi, and I'm like, girl,
And I know
what
she'll
the
eat the big
fuck?
chunks of ginger.
Yeah,
I
she don't
know.
care. No, she used to eat raw onion.
I know.
This little cracker shithead,
know.
I swear to God.
My little Scottish daughter.
I know, weird ass bitch.
Well, you know, I had a whole list of books that I wanted to recommend. We're almost at time, so I'm just going to do a couple of them.
Yeah.
Because there's so many. The first one is a children's book. It's called Fry Bread,
Okay.
written
Love that.
by Kevin Noble Maillard.
Oh, I know about this book actually.
Do ya?
Mm-hmm.
There's one called There There, which is a book of essays. But it's put together by Tommy Orange. It's Cheyenne and Arapaho people, but it's essays written by a lot of different people.
Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. One of the ones I found really interesting it's called, what is it called? Res Dogs?
Res Dogs is a show.
Well, but it's also Res Dogs. It's a book.
Well, now
by
it's a show.
Joseph, but this is different. This is specifically about, I'm not sure if I'm going to say that right, a Wabanaki girl,
Okay.
girl who had to do quarantine during COVID-19 on her at her grandma's house on the res, and it was kind of her experience. But it's a kid's book, talking about COVID-19 and how that all affected her and the reservation. And like Code Talkers, which I talked about before, which you have to read.
I have two.
But there's a couple children's and young adult books.
Okay.
One is called Elazzo, or Ellie for short, by Darcy Little Badger. It's young adult. And so they're just, go to Amazon. You can buy any of these books.
I have two of them. One of them, there's an author you should look up. Her name is Winona LaDuke. There's a book called All My Relation. It talks about different tribes in different regions of the United States that have been harmed by colonialism and big business. And so you should read about it because it gives you very detailed information. She's brilliant. All of her books are brilliant. And then there's a book this is more fun. There's short stories and it's like an anthology, and it's called Beyond the Stars, and it's a queer LGBT
And what's it called?
Beyond the Stars.
Oh,
And it's,
nice.
Queer LGBT two-spirit, all indigenous authors, and they write about space. And they write it's sci-fi, right? But it's fun, it's interesting, and it's like a new take, right? Colonialism in space. Different. So yeah,
Nice.
It's very interesting.
Nice. One of the other ones I wanted to throw in there is called We Are Water Protectors by Carol Lindstrom, and it's
Words.
It is specifically about the pipeline, the Dakota pipeline, and how the people, first of all, who it's affecting directly, and how it's going against the laws and the treaties that were signed with their group, their tribe.
Yeah.
Words are hard today. God, I'm so tired.
Drinking.
I've done too many things that I need to now hibernate for a couple days and just go to sleep.
Same.
I'm going to tell you. I was just going to share this with you because yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. I was trying to I'm like, I need a day of rest. I just need to rest, relax, recharge. And so I'm like, I'm just going to watch some movies and relax and whatever. And I swear to God, every 5 minutes, my mother came in. I was like, are you watching this? So I don't mean to interrupt you, but are you watching? And she, whatever it was.
Every time.
But every 5 minutes, I'm like, I guess that was Monday. I just need to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go up to my room and watch television. I'll take the dogs upstairs with me.
Hell yeah.
Go watch TV on my bed. But it was like, yes, I'm trying to... This is important television. I'm watching The Good Witch.
Right. Girl, it is educational at worst.
The thing is, it is the fluffiest of fluff television. And sometimes when my brain is exhausted, I just need fluff. I don't need any trauma. I don't need anybody being mad at anybody else. I need problems you can solve in an hour.
Girl, tell me about it.
There has to be a full resolution at the end of the
I intentionally go looking for things that are soft and easy and fluffy because I do so much thinking and critical thinking and writing and shit that I need sometimes to melt.
To unplug.
Hell yeah. Anyway.
And,
now it's time to say goodbye.
And now it's time to say goodbye to all our family. Yeah.
Don't be a shit ass. Go learn yourself something, bitch. Go teach yourself how to care more about Indigenous people.
Yes, my daughter said to me the other day that when she was having sex ed class, which I think was last year, that she sometimes had to leave the class and go sit out in the hall because she was uncomfortable.
Bitch.
And I was like, that's when you learn.
Girl.
So, dear white people, sit in your discomfort and learn something, and that's when you will grow.
Yes,
all
ma'am.
right?
Always and forever.
If something makes you uncomfortable,
learn.
You're probably learning something at the same time, and stretching, and figuring out the world isn't all about you.
And then go feel bad about it later. Go feel weird about it later. XOXO.
Or feel weird about the moment, but don't expect someone else to make you feel better about it.
Yeah, it's not their
job. That was,
job.
I think, one of the things I learned that I found really interesting is that what we as people often do is well, I feel bad because something I did to you, but I need you to make me feel better about it. No. It's not my job or anyone else's job to make you feel better about the shit that you do.
Sit in that discomfort.
Sit in that discomfort, learn something. And on that note, we're going to get out of here, but if you have anything you'd like to say to us, write us messages, send us suggestions, calls, comments, query, we don't care. Don't call us.
Don't call me. What the fuck?
Someone else asked if we would do a part 2 of the talking with my husband about the funeral industry. So if you have more questions about that, they didn't get answered on the first one, send us questions because he said he was happily do another one, but he has to have things in writing weeks ahead so he can plan, think about his answers.
Right.
But anyway, you know where to find us. You can find us on any podcasting app, and you can send us messages at itwouldsseemasthough@gmail.com. And we'll be back next Wednesday for episode 43.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
It would seem as though.